So today is the day after we had our festive meal, but we had our Yuletide meal on the 28th, which was yesterday. So today Chris went off to work early. Yesterday was the only day we actually both had that was compatible without one of us working. So I've been dealing with the aftermath. We had a lovely meal, all homegrown vegetables and duck that just came locally. It was gifted to us. So yeah, all local, and I'd like to say free, but I know there's the ongoing debate, isn't there, about growing your own vegetables and how much they really cost. But what mattered was it was delicious food that we knew exactly where it had come from, and that for me is key. And it was lovely. We had a really lovely day together. So I'm here in the woodshed. You can see the wood store behind me. I brought the bags in. But while we're in here, I thought I'd show you something else that we've got. However, if you're squeamish, vegetarian or vegan, then I suggest you just skip maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute, because you probably won't want to see the lovely pheasants that we've been gifted. So yeah, just skip 20 or 30 seconds to a minute if that's something that you wouldn't like to see. But it is something that is part of our rural living and part of our farm life. And oh my goodness, these are beautiful. So let me show you. They're just gorgeous. So my friend Jules' partner actually shoots, and he brought us on Christmas morning actually these absolutely lovely pheasants. And they'll be delicious. So we don't tend to hang ours for a long time. They're only hanging because we haven't had time to sort them. So either this afternoon or tomorrow, I will process those and they'll go in the freezer. But let's get these logs in. And I have to be a little bit careful because living in the woodshed, we have a beautiful toad, and he usually hops off into that corner. But I'm always worried that if the logs tumble, I'm going to squish him. And another little job that needs doing today. So we tend to keep a brush and shovel here, and usually a bucket actually. I don't know where that's gone. It's possibly blown away in the storms. I'll have to go and have a look. For when we have the horses here, usually for shoeing or rug changes, or any time we need to bring them on into a hard standing area. And also this is where we process a lot of wood with the chainsaw. So a lot has been swept up and it had kind of got into piles. And I've put them all into the wheelbarrow, but it's just been sitting here for a couple of days, so I need to take that across and put it into the compost bays at some point today as well. So I've got my trolley, which I don't know if you can see. Shall I lift it up for you? One of these trolleys. Ironically, she's lifting it up. I use it mainly because I struggle a little with my back sometimes these days. I do have prolapse discs in my lower back. I've had them for years and I've got some fusion there, so I just have to be a bit mindful. And that's predominantly when I'm gardening, I wear knee pads and get down. So what I want to do, I've got the key, is start unloading feed and whatnot from the car. So we've got some horse feed, some dog food, all sorts of bits and pieces. So here I've got something that's called Veteran Vitality, which is for the older horses, some Denji, which is like a chaff, but I have the molasses or sugar-free version because I think it's healthier, and at the very bottom are just some pony nuts, which are for the pony, for little Sunny. But I wish everything came in these paper bags. These paper bags are great, so it's paper, string, it's all biodegradable. It can either go in the compost or it's great for layering when you're mulching beds, and the dyes are vegetable dyes. Unfortunately the other two are plastic, but we do recycle and reuse them as much as we can before we throw them out. So we'll use them for carrying, storing, mucking out the chickens. There's a multitude of ways you can use old feed bags, but I just wish they all came in this paper. Still stuff in the back to get out, but we'll come back for that. I'm just going to get this into the barn and then we'll come back for the rest. So I'm just popping it on top of the bins for now while we empty the rest, and then later on I'll fill the bins with it, but you don't need to see that because it's a bit boring. So I've got some dog food, some coal, some kindling, a random box of cola, some firelighters, and then a random selection of paracetamol and aspirin, and I think somewhere in here are some antihistamine as well, and some bags. So that's the car empty, and let's lock it up. Let's go and unload these, and then let's go and have a look in the polytunnel and on the plot. While the weather is so lovely, I can show you around and talk about my plans for the year ahead. So that's 2 log baskets, there's one you can't see behind the chair, full, and the coal scuttle behind me here, which is also full. So next I'm going to have a cup of coffee, and I'm going to make a mocha pot coffee. So I don't know if any of you've got any little treats or guilty pleasures, but let me know in the comments below. But one of my treats to myself when I have time and in between doing other things is to make a proper mocha pot coffee. So let's go and do that next. Have a little breather before. I can't decide whether to go to the plot next or muck out the chickens. I think we might do the plot just in case it rains, because I can always put a waterproof on and muck out the chickens in the rain, but I can't take you with me if it rains, and I really want to show you around the garden. So for those of you not familiar with a mocha pot, you'll know as soon as you see it, it's one of these. So the water goes in the bottom, the coffee goes in here, and then you fasten it together, heat it on the stove, and then the pressure whoosh, pushes the water through the coffee and into the pot at the top, and it's just delicious. Right, so you can't see her, but there is a greyhound in the way. To make, for me, a perfect mocha pot coffee, you can use any brand of coffee, but I keep my ground tin of coffee in the fridge, and I use boiled water. I wish I had a gas hob, and years ago I had a Rayburn, which is a poor man's version of an Arga. The stove doesn't really get hot enough. There is a plate on top, and it's okay for kind of simmering a casserole, but it doesn't get hot enough for something like a mocha pot. So I have an electric hob, so I've switched that on already to warm it, and this is I've perfected how to make my mocha pot. So I thought I'd pressed record and I haven't, so I'm starting again, but I can't show you everything because I don't want to waste the coffee. So essentially I boiled the kettle and I've put my hot water into the base, and then I've used 1.5 tablespoons of coffee, which I patted in and dropped it in. And then you need to have your towel or a glove because the base will now be hot, and then you need to attach the top, but not too loose or too tight, so just hand tight, don't wrench it round, otherwise you damage the seal. And then we're going to pop it onto the stove, and then this is where I need my phone because I need to put the timer on. So it's popped on, and then what I find is if I go into my clock timer and I put 4 minutes, go, and 4 minutes is just about perfection for this mocha pot. So I was trying to give you a little sneaky peek, but I don't want to splash it everywhere, so obviously the lid should stay closed, but you can see it's squirting out there through the top into the pot. And then you can use that any way you want to. So I'm just having it as an espresso today, so I've just got 1 spoon of brown sugar in my cup. But you could add that and make a latte or whatever you wanted to do with it, but I just fancy a little bit of a boost this morning. Look at that, delicious. And that's how to make a perfect mocha pot coffee. So, replenished after my coffee, I thought we'd get over and have a little look around at what's going on here in the polytunnel and outside here at the vegetable plot. It's been really mild so far this winter, and normally by now I have this door, which you can probably just see, let me just move it, with the mesh on it, usually is closed now, battened up and that mesh covered, and then I only use the sliding door. But for various reasons this year, and we'll have a motorbike, for various reasons this year, with my health and work, I've said this a multitude of times, but what I love about growing and gardening is, and again I've said this multitudes of times as well, every year, every spring is a do-over, it's a reset, isn't it? So I'm not worrying about what hasn't happened. I had a really productive year, it's just not as neat and tidy as I would like it, and I haven't done some of the jobs I normally would, but I've got all winter to catch up with myself, or the rest of the winter into spring, so I've got a considerable amount of time, haven't I? So we didn't get round to battening up that door, but it doesn't matter this year for a couple of reasons. One is it's been very mild, and the other is that there's nothing really growing in here now. So normally I do it to contain that heat and keep it insulated, but I haven't worried so much this year. It didn't happen, and I'm not so worried. So let's have a little look around. So let's just look at what you can see now, and then I'll get you in a little bit closer. So what you can't see in the corner is the peppermint chard, which has been absolutely amazing. I've let it go a little bit over. I'll probably harvest what's left, and I'm going to pull that up. There's a few parsnips left in this bed. The bed to my left, to your right, nearest the door, is empty. This bed, there's still a few beans left on these. That's just fallen off in my hand. So if these are dried enough, I can save them. But they just need to be pulled down. All the baskets need to come down and be emptied. A few more carrots left to harvest, and there's a few leek in the tub in the corner. But apart from that, this will be my first season for quite some time where I'm actually going to clear the polytunnel completely, and then I can top up all the beds and start again in the spring. But normally I always have something going in here, but I haven't started the things that I often would that would be growing now. But you know, that's not such a bad thing, that I can have a complete clear, re-top up the beds with some fresh compost, and then start fresh in the spring. So let's have a proper look around. So empty bed, as I've already said. I don't really need to show you all the empty beds. Look at this chard. I mean, isn't it just delightful? But you can see it started to go over, but there are still some salvageable, you know, bit of a salvageable crop there, and then I'm going to pull it up. I've got lots of these baskets which have been delightful, full of flowers, and I sometimes do herbs in them, but obviously they're all finished. Just the parsnips here, so this is the longer or longest bed. Those parsnips to come in, and then on this side I had dwarf beans in the back of that bed, and then I had climbing beans up over the bean arches, and I've got another one of those here which also goes up and over, whoop, and then down the other side. And I've cleared this side of this one. There's a little bit left still to come off this one, clanging banging on the wind chime there. So it's just this one to clear, and the baskets and that bed. A few more carrots to come out of this bed. I've already cleared a lot of the pots and tubs, so there's just a few leek left in that tub over there. And the eagle eyes of you may have noticed when I did my harvest in my last video, the leek you may have thought didn't look particularly healthy. I'm just going to pull one up to show you. So essentially these leek would probably be bigger and fatter, but I had a period where I wasn't coming in here enough and I wasn't watering. But whilst they don't look, when I pulled them up you can see, look, they don't look that great. But if you pull back this outer dry area, and it has only dried because, as I say, they didn't get the water, but inside, look at that. And we've been eating these. They're perfectly lovely and succulent inside. And you'll probably notice I've got no coat, no hat. I'm in my, I don't know if you can see, my Crocs. It's really, really mild. It is, in fact, let's have a little look. So I say it's really, really mild. It's mild for this time. So it's 8.9 degrees outside, but it's 12.3 degrees here in the polytunnel. Sorry, I think I just disappeared out of shot. So these are the onion sets that you saw me doing in the last video, which was only yesterday. It may be a week since you saw them, but it was only yesterday, so there's nothing doing on those. But everywhere I've managed to do not too badly. I do need to clean the polythene, and I use Algon for that, and I'll show you when I'm doing it. So I'll probably get the inside done, and that's another advantage of having cleared everything, because any crops I normally have, although it is completely non-toxic, it can discolour leaves, and you don't really want to be eating vegetables that have got something like Algon. Although it's completely safe, I personally like to protect the plants, but there won't be any plants in here, so that'll be a bonus. And I am going to give, you know, there's a corner that you can't see that's become a bit of a dumping ground, so all that will get pulled out and sorted and get rid of the things I don't need. It's essentially kind of compost bags and boxes and netting that's all been shoved under this staging. But I've been pottering about and got quite a lot done. Just a little bit more to do, which, you know, on a rainy day in the polytunnel with the radio on, you can come in and get so much done. And then if it's good weather, I can get outside. Talking of which, let's go and have a look round, and I can show you the kind of positives and negatives of what's going on outside on the plot. So can you hear that squelch? And can you see that squelch? So one of the things I've talked about a lot in videos leading up to this one is the bark pathways. And I know everybody's different and not everybody's into weed suppressant, but it's something I do use, and it's the good quality stuff that doesn't tend to fall apart. So I've got weed suppressant membrane with bark on top. But in time that bark will start to rot, and then I will just scrape it, compost it, and I'm going to put some fresh bark down. But it's just been one of the wettest years ever. And when I talked earlier about, in last week's video about my potatoes, it wasn't the fact that they were out in the rain. I know potatoes can cope with rain. It was the fact that they were tubs out in rain for a very extended period of time, so they got waterlogged and soggy, and that's what the issue there was. So I've got, you can't see them, so let's just tip the camera and I'll show you. I've got some pansies and a rather neglected cyclamen that should bounce back. Let me show you where they are. So either side of the polytunnel door, in this tub here and that one there, is some of the daffodils with some winter pansies in there, and then in there is a rather poor specimen of a cyclamen. I bought them and they were great, and I didn't get round, they got left in the polytunnel and neglected. But some of the pansies are also in the hanging baskets either side of the shed door. And the idea of those was to have a little bit of winter colour, but I left them in the polytunnel and didn't water them. But a few weeks ago I managed to get them out, and they're coming, they are coming back. So before I walk underneath it, this structure that I built for the nasturtium and the baby boo pumpkin, it was only ever meant to be a temporary structure, and you can see it's starting to fall apart. So I will be taking that down, and you can see there's an awful lot of grass and weeds in the path, which I'll be tackling. So this tangly jungly mess here is my flower bed, and there's lots of plants that will come back. So I've got a rudbeckia there, and there's a few other bits and pieces I can't remember off the top of my head. Lupins, there were some alliums, so there's lots that will come back, but there's a lot of grass and weeds in there, so that's one that needs sorting. And there were sweet peas on both of these obelisks, and I just need to clear what's left of the sweet peas and hopefully save some of those seeds. So that's the flower bed, and then a very weedy path area, and then over to the next vegetable bed. So I'm at the end. You can see the full length of this bed, and you can see I've cleared almost half, so I've just got this left to weed and clear, and again, as I've mentioned, I'm going to take that structure down, and then we'll move along. We've got the brassica bed. We've got a bed that had some other brassicas and turnips and some squash in it, and then the other bed that's got, I think, some chives and some beetroot left. So let's have a look at those. So again, a bit of a tangly mess, and you can barely even see the planks that I use as separators between these three beds. But in the bed to my left, to your right, I've still got some kalettes, purple sprouting broccoli, sprouts and Cavolo Nero. This bed had a lot of squash and pumpkin, and if I just very carefully, because I'm in my Crocs, there are still 1, 2, 3 swede here, and there's also a little bit of curly kale that got very stinted because it got pest damage, but it's actually coming back, and we might get some pickings off that in the spring. And then in this bed here, there's chives in the corner which have died back and will return. There's a lot of beetroot that didn't get harvested, so let's just have a look. So that one's completely slug damaged, but there may be, oh, there's a biggish one, a little bit of damage on that. I'm just going to pop it on the side, but there we go. Let me show you. Whoop, mind the, shouldn't really walk on my beds. That's a really decent beet. So I am going to get some of those harvested before it gets frosty, because then they will just go to mush. But that's a decent beetroot, and there's an awful lot in there, so I'm going to harvest and salvage the best that I can, give some away and just process them and pop them in the freezer, rather than let them go to waste. But I just haven't been out harvesting like I normally would. And then we've got the raspberry canes behind me to your left, my right, and then the strawberry bed, which is still netted. I just haven't got round to taking those nets off. So plenty to do, but also plenty going on. And here you can see the rhubarb bed, and it's completely overgrown, but you can just see in the centre there that crown, and it's looking okay, and I may very well clear that and mulch it over with some compost before the frosts come. And then the compost bays and some thrown netting and an awful lot of overgrown grass. So as you can see, there's lots of positives, loads of good stuff going on, and lots for me to get stuck into over the coming weeks. So I am really looking forward to turning this plot back around. I've made some adjustments at work, so because my management hours were just eating me up and I was working stupid hours, but I've had meetings, and it's been agreed that, you know, I can't keep working at that pace, so they've done some adjusting to fit my management hours in, which will mean I have a little bit more free time again, and I can get back on top of things and enjoy. I love my job, but the balance had tipped the wrong way. So now from January forwards, I've got a couple of weeks off in the new year, and I'll already be into that time off by the time you watch this video. But yeah, so lots and lots to do, and I'm looking forward to taking you on the journey with me. I don't know if anybody is keen to sow stuff in January. I'm certainly going to be making a start, but because I haven't closed up that polytunnel, and I don't generally grow things in the house or use a heat source, because I probably won't cover that up now. And, you know, really into March, we can still have some real cold plummeting temperatures. Lots of snow here in North Wales, you know, and everything will just be blanketed over, and the temperature in the polytunnel will be cold. So I'm probably going to hang fire. And I think I'm just going to start things in February and March this year, and just really take my time and enjoy the process. So here I am with the chickens. Hello, beautiful lady. And I'm going to give them a good muck out. So I've brought everything across that I need to pop you down, darling, to completely clear them out and put fresh bedding in. So generally what I do, they're all here, I wish you could see them. Let me move the camera because it seems a shame that you're not able to see them. So here they all are, these lovely ladies. They're just wonderful. They give me so much joy, and anyone who keeps chickens will know just how amazing they are. Flutter, flutter. So generally we throw some fresh straw in and top up on a daily basis or every other day. I know what you're after, my lovely. Do you like a blueberry? And then we give them a full muck out every week or so. Would you like a blueberry? So my camera battery ran out. I'm not sure how much of that until I come to edit that we got. Whoop! The wind's picking up. But essentially what I was saying was, and as you can see, being demonstrated beautifully, I don't know if you can see her in the dark, one of the reasons I love pottering about out here when I come to muck them out is that they tend to come and help me. So well, they think they're helping, they kind of get in the way. But it's one of those jobs when you're out doing anything in the chicken area, you've got company of the beautiful chickens. So let's get this job done. And I talked earlier about reusing bags, and that's exactly what I'm going to be doing appropriately with a poultry picnic bag, which is one of their favourite mixes. So I'll be mucking out into this bucket and then tipping it into the bag with my lovely little helpers in inverted commas. And this will all go onto the compost heap. You help him? It's actually suddenly starting to rain, so I'm going to switch you off, carry on with this job, and then get myself indoors before I get too soaked. Hello, beautiful. So it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from her.